The message arrived without warning, broadcast across every human colony, every station, every ship in known space. It was short, direct, and absolute. Humanity was accused of creating a biological weapon so dangerous that it threatened every living species in the galaxy. The evidence, the Galactic Council claimed, was undeniable. They did not ask for explanations. They did not offer trials. They simply declared that all humans were to be exiled immediately, and every jump gate leading to Earth would be sealed forever. No one believed it at first. Humans had been part of the galactic community for over 200 years. They had traded, explored, built alliances, and even saved entire worlds from disaster. But the Council's decision was final. Within days, human diplomats were escorted off alien worlds. Human merchants were forced to abandon their trade routes. Scientists, artists, teachers, engineers, everyone with human blood was given a single choice: leave now, or be imprisoned. Billions of people scattered across dozens of star systems suddenly found themselves homeless. Families were torn apart. Children born on distant planets were forced to leave the only worlds they had ever known. And Earth, the ancient homeworld that many had never even visited, became the only place left to go. The jump gates closed one by one, sealing humanity behind an invisible wall. The galaxy turned its back, and humanity disappeared from the stars. At first, there was chaos. Refugee ships poured into the Sol system by the thousands, overcrowding stations and settlements. Resources ran thin. Anger and confusion spread like wildfire. Some demanded answers. Others wanted revenge. But the leaders of Earth made a choice that would define the next 3 centuries. They did not beg for mercy. They did not plead their innocence to a galaxy that would not listen. Instead, they went silent. They closed every remaining communication channel, pulled back every last ship, and locked the borders tight. If the galaxy wanted humanity gone, then humanity would vanish completely. But vanishing did not mean dying. It meant evolving. Deep within the Sol system, far from the eyes of any alien probe or spy satellite, humanity began to rebuild. Engineers who had once designed colony habitats now worked on something far more ambitious, entirely new types of starships that did not rely on the old jump gate network. Scientists who had been exiled from prestigious research institutions gathered in secret labs, pushing past every restriction the Council had ever placed on human technology. Quantum drives, neural interface systems, adaptive AI networks, weapons that bent space itself, everything that had been deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable, too human, was now being perfected in silence. And they did not stop at the Sol system. Hidden exploration fleets slipped through uncharted regions of space, finding star systems that no alien species had ever mapped. Colonies were established in the shadows, each one designed to be invisible to conventional sensors. Entire worlds were terraformed in secret, their populations growing in isolation, united by a single purpose: survive, adapt, and become something the galaxy could never ignore again. Decades passed. Then centuries. The galaxy forgot about humanity. Old records were archived. Trade routes adjusted. New species rose to power, and humanity became nothing more than a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happened when a species grew too reckless, too ambitious, too dangerous. The Council moved on, confident that the threat had been contained. But humanity had not been contained. They had been unleashed. In the hidden colonies, generations grew up hearing the story of the exile. They learned why their ancestors had been cast out, and they learned what it meant to be human in a galaxy that feared them. They were taught to be curious, to question everything, to never accept limits imposed by others. They were raised in a culture that celebrated ingenuity, resilience, and the refusal to surrender. And they were trained in technologies that no other species even knew existed. By the time the 3rd century of exile ended, humanity had built something extraordinary. It was not an empire in the traditional sense. There were no grand declarations, no visible fleets patrolling known space. Instead, it was a network. A web of hidden worlds, silent stations, and ghost ships that moved through the void without leaving a trace. Communication happened instantaneously across light years through quantum relays. Resources flowed seamlessly between colonies. Defense systems watched every approach, ready to respond to any threat. And at the center of it all was Earth, no longer a forgotten homeworld, but the heart of a civilization that had grown stronger in the darkness. The galaxy had no idea. They believed the gates were still sealed. They believed humanity was trapped, isolated, slowly fading into irrelevance. But the gates had not been sealed from the outside. They had been sealed from the inside. And humanity had long since stopped needing them. Then, on a quiet morning in the galactic core, a ship appeared. It was sleek, dark, and utterly unknown. It moved through space without any visible propulsion, faster than anything the Council had on record. Sensors failed to lock onto it. Communication attempts went unanswered. And when a patrol fleet tried to intercept it, the ship simply vanished, reappearing light years away moments later. Panic spread quickly. The Council convened emergency sessions. Intelligence agencies scrambled to identify the origin of the mysterious vessel. Theories ranged from a new alien species to some kind of ancient automated probe. But deep in the classified archives, a few analysts found something that made their blood run cold. The ship's energy signature, faint as it was, matched nothing in the known galaxy, except for one thing. Old human technology. The kind that had been banned centuries ago. And that was when the galaxy realized the truth. Humanity had not been imprisoned. Humanity had been preparing. And now, they were back. The Council's response was immediate and chaotic. Emergency broadcasts went out across every major system, warning of a potential unknown threat. Military fleets were placed on high alert. Diplomatic channels buzzed with speculation and fear. But no one could agree on what to do next. Some argued for sending scouts to investigate. Others demanded that the old gates to human space be reopened, if only to confirm that humanity was still where they had been left. A few even suggested reaching out, attempting contact, hoping that perhaps this was all a misunderstanding. But the strange ship did not wait for the galaxy to make up its mind. It appeared again, this time near a major trade hub on the edge of Council space. It did not attack. It did not communicate. It simply hovered there, visible to every sensor, every telescope, every surveillance system in the region. And then, after exactly 1 hour, it vanished again. The message was clear: we can go wherever we want, whenever we want, and you cannot stop us. The sightings continued. A mysterious vessel near a mining colony. Another one drifting silently above a heavily fortified military outpost. Each appearance lasted just long enough to be recorded, analyzed, and feared. The ships never engaged, never threatened, never even acknowledged the countless hails sent their way. They were ghosts, phantoms that defied every known law of physics and strategy. And with each appearance, the galaxy's confidence crumbled a little more. In the halls of the Galactic Council, the mood shifted from confusion to dread. Intelligence reports piled up, each one more unsettling than the last. The ships used propulsion systems that bypassed relativity. Their hulls absorbed or deflected every type of scanning beam. And their movements suggested a level of coordination that could only come from a vast, hidden network. The Council had believed they were dealing with a single rogue vessel. Now, they were forced to consider a far darker possibility: they were dealing with an entire civilization that had been operating in the shadows for centuries. One of the Council's senior military advisors, a veteran commander from the Vorath species, finally voiced what everyone was thinking. If these ships are human, then we need to know what else they have built. We sealed them away 300 years ago. What have they been doing all this time? The decision was made. A reconnaissance fleet would be sent to the edge of the old human quarantine zone. They would not attempt to cross into Sol system. No one was ready for that level of confrontation yet. But they would survey the borders, scan for activity, and try to determine whether humanity had truly remained contained. It was a delicate mission, one that required both caution and courage. And so, the Council selected their best, a mixed fleet of warships, science vessels, and diplomatic envoys, all prepared for whatever they might find. The fleet arrived at the edge of the quarantine zone 3 weeks later. The ancient jump gates still hung in space, dormant and sealed, just as they had been left centuries ago. Long-range scans detected nothing unusual. No ships. No stations. No signs of life. For a moment, the fleet commanders allowed themselves to relax. Perhaps the mysterious ships were not human after all. Perhaps humanity had remained isolated, unaware of the galaxy beyond their prison. But then, one of the science officers noticed something strange. The gates themselves were emitting a faint energy signature, one that had not been present in the original designs. It was subtle, almost undetectable, but it was there. And it was active. The fleet moved closer, cautious, scanning every detail. And that was when they realized the truth. The gates had not been sealed by the Council. They had been modified. Repurposed. And they were no longer inactive. They were simply waiting. Before anyone could react, the gates flared to life. Not to open, but to transmit. A message, broadcasted on every known frequency, in every known language, echoed across the fleet. The voice was calm, measured, and unmistakably human. You exiled us because you feared what we might become. You sealed us away because you believed we were dangerous. You were right. We are dangerous. But not in the way you imagined. We do not seek revenge. We do not desire conquest. We have spent 3 centuries building something better than the galaxy you left us behind in. And now, we offer you a choice. Continue as you are, blind and afraid. Or open your eyes and see what humanity has become. The transmission ended. And in its wake, the fleet sensors exploded with data. Ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Appearing from nowhere, surrounding the fleet on all sides. They were sleek, elegant, and impossibly advanced. They did not power weapons. They did not move to attack. They simply existed, a silent wall of overwhelming force. And at the center of the formation, one ship broke away. It was larger than the others, its hull marked with a symbol that the galaxy had not seen in centuries, the emblem of Earth. A single voice transmitted from the ship, and this time, it was not a recording. It was a person. A human. Alive, real, and waiting. My name is Admiral Kane. I speak for the United Colonies of Sol. We have been watching you. We have been listening. And now, we are ready to talk. The question is, are you ready to listen? The fleet commanders looked at each other, uncertainty and fear written across their faces. They had come expecting to find a defeated species, locked away and forgotten. Instead, they had found an empire. A hidden, advanced, and unified civilization that had been growing in the darkness while the galaxy slept. And now, humanity was no longer hiding. The council chambers had never been so quiet. Every representative sat in stunned silence as the recordings played on the central display. Images of the human fleet. Data streams showing impossible technology. And most unsettling of all, maps, detailed, accurate maps of nearly every major system in council space. Systems that humanity should have had no way of reaching. Systems that were supposed to be protected, hidden, secure. Admiral Kane's message had been clear. Humanity had not been idle. They had been watching, learning, preparing. And now, they were stepping out of the shadows, not as refugees begging for readmission, but as equals demanding recognition. The Council had 2 choices: acknowledge humanity's return and negotiate terms, or continue to treat them as a threat and face the consequences. One of the Council's elder statesmen, a dignified representative from the ancient Saravax Empire, finally spoke. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. They claim they do not seek revenge. But they surround our fleets with overwhelming force. They demonstrate capabilities we cannot match. How can we trust them? A younger delegate, representing a newer species that had joined the council long after humanity's exile, leaned forward. Perhaps the better question is, how can we afford not to trust them? If they wanted war, they could have struck years ago. Instead, they revealed themselves and offered dialogue. That is not the action of a hostile power. Debate erupted. Some argued for immediate military mobilization. Others called for diplomatic outreach. A few even suggested trying to reseal the quarantine, though everyone knew that option was laughable now. The truth was undeniable, the galaxy had changed. Humanity was no longer the exiled species of 3 centuries ago. They had evolved into something far more formidable, and the Council had no idea how to respond. While the Council argued, Admiral Kane and her fleet did not withdraw. They held position at the edge of the quarantine zone, a constant reminder that humanity was not going away. But they also did not advance. They did not threaten. They simply waited. It was a calculated move, one designed to apply pressure without provoking open conflict. And it worked. Within days, the Council agreed to send a delegation to meet with the humans. Not in Council space. Not on human territory. But at a neutral station, one that had been abandoned decades ago but now served as a perfect meeting ground. The delegation arrived nervous and uncertain. They had been briefed on what to expect, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality. The human representatives were not angry. They were not bitter. They were calm, professional, and devastatingly well-informed. They knew every treaty, every law, every loophole in council governance. And they had come with a proposal. Humanity did not want to rejoin the council as it had existed before. They had no interest in being a junior member, subject to laws written by species who had betrayed them. Instead, they proposed a new framework. A restructured council, one where humanity would be recognized as a sovereign power with equal authority. In exchange, they offered access to technologies that could revolutionize the galaxy, quantum communication, advanced propulsion, medical breakthroughs that could extend lifespans and cure diseases thought incurable. But there was a condition. The Council had to admit its mistake. Publicly. The false accusation, the unjust exile, the centuries of isolation, all of it had to be acknowledged and rectified. Humanity would not accept half measures or quiet apologies. If the galaxy wanted to benefit from what humanity had built, then the galaxy had to accept responsibility for what it had done. The negotiations lasted weeks. Hardliners on both sides argued against compromise. But slowly, gradually, a consensus formed. The evidence was undeniable. The original accusation against humanity had been based on falsified data, planted by a rival faction within the Council that had feared human innovation. The truth had been buried for centuries, but humanity's intelligence networks had uncovered it, piece by piece, during their long exile. And now, they were forcing the galaxy to confront its own corruption. When the Council finally issued its formal statement, it sent shockwaves across known space. Humanity had been wronged. The exile had been unjust. And moving forward, Earth and its colonies would be recognized as a sovereign interstellar nation with full rights and protections. It was not a perfect resolution. Old prejudices did not disappear overnight. But it was a beginning. And humanity did not waste the opportunity. Within months, human ships began appearing in trade lanes, offering goods and services that no other species could match. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers, sharing knowledge that had been refined in isolation. Human engineers helped rebuild struggling colonies, applying techniques that had been perfected in the hidden worlds of Sol's network. And slowly, grudgingly, the galaxy began to see humanity not as a threat, but as an asset. But not everyone celebrated. There were species who still feared human ambition. Factions within the council who believed that humanity's rapid rise was dangerous, that giving them power would only lead to future conflict. And deep in the shadows, old enemies began to stir, watching humanity's return with suspicion and envy. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of her flagship, gazing out at the stars. The journey was far from over. Humanity had proven it could survive exile. It had proven it could build an empire in the dark. But now came the hardest test of all, proving they could thrive in the light, surrounded by species that had once abandoned them. She thought about the generations who had grown up in isolation, the children who had been taught that the galaxy was not a place of welcome, but a place to be outsmarted and outlasted. They had done their part. They had built the foundation. And now, it was time to build something greater. Not through conquest or domination, but through innovation, resilience, and the refusal to ever be underestimated again. The galaxy had exiled humanity once. It would never make that mistake again. As the stars stretched out before her, Admiral Kane smiled. Humanity was back. And this time, they were here to stay.